Welcome to the Occult Rejects. We are two former secret society members who were determined to show the public the truth that occultism has been purposely integrated into every aspect of society, from politics to music, Hollywood, and science. This is used to manipulate the public as a whole and to protect the fake elite. The symbols are used all around us to affect world events and public perception, our behavior, and even our future. We will translate the occult so that you have eyes to see. We reject their agenda to give you the tools to save yourself.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Occult Rejects with your hosts Lux
and the NY Patriot.
Today we're fortunate enough to have Bryan McClain on. He's the host of the Bryan McClain Show on TNT Radio and also the Boiler Room. And he does you put out a lot of content, my friend. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on. You're a hardworking guy.
Thank you, and no problem. I'm happy to join you guys. I did the Bryan McClain Show this morning. Boiler Room coming up tonight. But very happy to be here with you gentlemen today. I'm interested in the subject matter, so thanks for the invite.
No problem. Sure. Yeah, when I was going through your stuff, and I was like, oh, I'll send Lux whatever he's, any topics, on this topic, I'll send him any of the links. And I was just like, I cannot go through all these shows. So I was like, yo, can you just send me one? Because I was looking at your stuff and I was like, this guy's got hundreds of Can't.
It's crazy, man. Yeah. It's absolutely crazy. The production schedule at TNT is ambitious, and they pull it off really well. I actually do 3 interviews a day, 5 days a week. So just with TNT, I'm pulling pretty much 15 interviews by the end of the week. And we're going to double that. Actually, we're going to start doing 2 guests per hour pretty soon here. So coming up, it's going to be 30 interviews or more by the end of the week, just on TNT. And then, Sunday Wire, Boiler Room, all the shows we curate over at ACR too. So yeah, it's a fun and ambitious schedule I'm on here. And yeah, I don't blame you guys for not wanting to dive into the pool of past recordings. I can't even keep up with myself. Sometimes I have a guest on. I'm like, oh yeah, I spoke with you 2 weeks ago. I almost totally forgot.
I know.
So just, I guess, for our listeners who might be unfamiliar with your work, what do you typically cover? Like, what are the subjects you're passionate about? What do you like to get into on your show?
Oh man, well, on TNT it's news oriented, so definitely current events. I'm very interested in current events, but I'm interested in current events from the lens of understanding and accepting that our mainstream media is nothing more than a mass media cartel that should not be trusted, and it's completely legal and normalized for them to propagandize the citizens of the country and the world. To try to atomize us and polarize us. And, while they commit all kinds of, they run cover basically for all of the atrocities that, we have to argue about and we have to stand by and accept. And I just like breaking through that stuff. So I'll take anything on that is in the mainstream media. I've developed somewhat of a skill in geopolitics and American power politics. I'm a metalhead at heart, and I grew up into horror movies and, death metal and having fun. That was my main thing. And computers, I have a career in computers and IT. In my background, I did 16 years at the Naval School in Monterey as a computer specialist, I guess, cybersecurity manager, database, that sort of stuff. So, I'm interested in technology. I'm interested in technocracy. I'm really interested in the goals and paths of NGOs. I'm interested in how social media and Silicon Valley technologies play into this stuff, how we're tracked and traced via big data. And for the last couple of years, I'm all about that Rona, baby. I am all about kicking the crap out of that Rona response, the myth of PCR tests, the myth of asymptomatic spreaders, the absolute assault that we've been under with the products they've released in the wake of it. So yeah, that's just sort of a short list of my passions right there.
Well, and something that you mentioned on your bio on TNT is that you mentioned specifically cultural engineering. And it's, people would, because today we're going to be talking, for the listeners, we're going to be talking about a true crime situation that I found kind of interesting and showed to NY, and then things went from there. And listeners might say to them, why are you guys covering true crime? Because with a lot of these events that happen, it's exactly that. It's social engineering. So it's so important for independent media, right? People who have podcasts to look at these world events and decide for themselves what's true about this, what's fake, and is some of it engineering for the masses so that they believe a certain narrative. And it's just fascinating to me, and I'm glad that you brought that up in your bio, because it's so important to point it out.
It really is, and we need to get rid of the stigmatism around it. There's this whole stigma to it, like, oh, if you look into esoteric stuff or whatever, or conspiracy theories, you're a terrible person and you're gullible and you're stupid. And I think that those talking points are really wearing thin as the veil just continues to get thinner and thinner, and the emperor's walking around wearing no clothes. And we see what all these people are doing. So it's I'm down with normalizing free speech, I guess is what I'm saying. I want to get over that, and I'm down with people having to swallow the hard pill that our mass media is largely just a propaganda tool, and it does exactly what you're saying. It's there to culture jam us. It's there to shock us. It's there to traumatize us. It's there to polarize us. It's there to make us feel less than. And it's got to stop. It's got to stop. I watched this for the second time. I watched this movie last night called Under the Silver Lake. And it's you guys have probably seen it, knowing what you guys are into. Oh, you got to check it out. You got to check it out if you haven't seen it. But the story is about a young man living in like the Hollyweird / Laurel Canyon, haunts in LA. And he gets wrapped up in this girl, and it turns out this girl is part of some larger, weird, esoteric Hollywood, like sex cult, religion, weird underground cult thing. And he comes across this one guy who writes about this stuff in the form of graphic novels. And there's this great line. I wish I had it memorized so I wouldn't butcher it, but I'll do my best. This great line when he meets this guy. It's your quintessential crazy guy, like the meme with Charlie or whatever his name is from Always Sunny with the board, and all the strings.
Yes.
He's having his conspiracy guy moment. It's like he runs into a character similar to that representation. And the guy is basically, he tells him, our media is awash in esoteric symbology, and it's there for a reason. It's put there for a reason. It has a purpose.
I agree with that 100%.
It definitely does. I mean, that's a lot of what we try to point out, is breaking down things from whether it be the news, movies, books, just general culture, music. It's everywhere, and it's there on purpose. It's used to influence the public, and just hopefully the more that we can break it all down for people, they'll have the eyes to see it, because it's just, once you do, it's hard to look away, because any show, any song you listen to, anything, it's like, okay, I see the hidden meaning behind this now.
Right. It's everywhere. We're drowning in it, and many of us don't even know it. We're just, swimming in a soup of this stuff, and there's so much of it, you can't even make sense of it unless you really take the time to, do what you guys do and look at individual cases and chase them down and explore the nuance within and around them, and explore the counterpoints, because there's a lot of chicanery out there, and there's a lot of messages within messages, and a lot of, cul-de-sacs and places, where people like us can be led if we're not careful.
Right.
I agree.
So I guess we're going to be touching on the Kiely Rodni case today. And this is something that I started to look into a couple days after this girl goes missing, right? So long story short, 16-year-old girl by the name of Kiely Rodni goes missing at a party in the Lake Tahoe area, right? She was apparently there with friends who, say they left the party, they didn't see her after a certain time or hear from her after a certain time, and she totally disappears. And you would think that, well, maybe the police would be looking around the local area to see if they could locate her vehicle or something. The police claim that they did a lot of searching in this lake, and they don't find anything. I think they said something like 1,900 man hours, scuba volunteers, tons of different people who knew the area and just looking around the terrain. And they don't find her until a YouTuber, they're a group called AWP, Adventures with a Purpose, volunteers to go to the lake or the area where she goes missing. They arrive on the scene, and in roughly, it's hard to pick out exactly how long they were there, but they were there for hours. But they found her within 30 feet of the shore, in less than 10 feet of water, I believe it was. So it was very close to the shore. And AWP finds the vehicle, and sadly, there is Kiely Rodni's body in what we now know, the trunk. And it's just a lot of strange, nuanced inconsistencies around the whole thing caught my attention, and that's more or less why we're talking about it. And you've done a lot of research on this, so the floor is open to you, my friend. Just kind of tell us what you know.
Yeah. So that's a really interesting area. Truckee. It's weird because Truckee is so far away from the center of Placer County, but there are Placer County, and it butts up against Nevada County. So some people might be wondering, well, why is it Placer and Nevada County? Like sometimes they're talking to representatives from Nevada County, sometimes Placer County. If you look at the way those counties are shaped and you look at where Truckee is, you can see that Placer County is massive. Nevada County is pretty big too. Nevada County, also home county, only county in California shaped like a gun. What's up? Yeah. Look at it on the map. It really is. So anyway, it's an interesting area, very popular area. People like to ski, people like to camp. It's beautiful up there. The kids like to party up there for sure. Truckee's where the snowboarders all hang out, and they skateboard in the spring and the summer, so it's a fun area. It's a very family oriented area. You've got Donner Lake right up there nearby the Prosser Creek Reservoir, where they actually found Kiely's car. And it's very wooded. There's, not great cell phone signals. Last time I was there, it's probably better these days, but it's a really interesting area, and it's a vast area. There's a lot of places someone could be missing, things like that. And quick correction, I believe it was 60 personnel between the two counties, working a total of 19,000 man hours, not 1,900, 19,000 combined man hours. They searched the whole area. They searched the lake. They had dive teams out there, right? And it was found, like you said, except I think it was 14 feet of water, not a big difference between 10 and 14 feet. And you're right, they did find it within 35 minutes. So what they did was they waited. Well, I don't know that they were waiting around or anything, but 3 weeks into the search, approximately, Adventures with Purpose went out there, and they let law enforcement know they were going to do what they were going to do. They talked to the family, let the family know they were going to do what they do. They even interviewed some people who had thought they had seen her, stuff like that. Like, they do a little bit of stuff, and they're very, by all appearances, a very professional outfit. You know what I mean? They've got several camera guys. They've got, obviously, they've got video editors and, sound guy probably, or maybe their camera guy does both. I don't know, but they have a full team. They have, two boats that they carry, modern sonar technology in. So, and they're very experienced. You know what I mean? They're subject matter experts in using sonar in lakes. And if anyone out there viewing doesn't know their background, they have a YouTube channel, and that's what they do. They help families solve cold cases, and they specialize in retrieving cars from underwater. So that's sort of what they do. and they make money by people support them by donations. They have a monetized YouTube channel. They do media appearances. I don't know that they're paid for them or anything like that. And you know, people can go there and buy merch, whatever. That's the other aspect about this organization. It's very professional, in a well-rounded way. You know what I mean? They have the support that they need. And I assume that everything is above board there and that they have earned that because they have solved 24 cold cases and brought closure to a number of families.
Yeah.
Were
So
they also the ones who interviewed the tow truck guy?
Yeah. I just watched that before we talked today.
Yeah, but I think he actually technically was in a van, but not a tow truck, right? And I think like that's even been like a misconception, I think, amongst YouTubers.
Oh, really?
Yeah, okay. That I think in his interview, like the guy actually does mention like being in a van, and a lot of people assuming because he was a tow truck guy, they're thinking a tow truck might have been involved now, when like no, it could have been just a dude in a van.
Yeah, right. You know, and he said that he got the dispatch from the note on the dispatch was that it was a battery call. So you don't need a tow truck in many cases to, you know, jump a car, replace a battery, whatever. So it's, you know, that's not necessarily something that needs to be a red flag, I would say.
Yeah, you're right. And with AWP, I mean, they've put in a lot of work over the years to bring closure. Some of the videos where they're pulling these cars out and you see still a missing person inside, it gives a lot of closure, but you know, it's shocking to see. And it's so surprising to me because you just mentioned the 19,000 man hours. The reason why I said 1900 is because it was so long ago that I had read it. I thought to myself, there's no way that they could have been searching for 19,000. I was like, it's got to be 1900.
Dude, I do that all the time. I do that all the time. Like I'll read a number and then later try to recall it and be like, no, that was too absurd. I must have added a zero.
Right. Because you would think in that sheer amount of time and manpower that they would be able to find something that a AWP did in a very short amount of time with way less people.
Yeah. 2 dudes. I mean, essentially anyone else that was with them was there for media support or maybe, you know, personal support or anything like that. But I mean, it's just, I forget I think it might be Doug and Nick. I can't remember their names. Sorry guys, if you watch this, but those two guys with 2 boats, 2 small boats, you know, it's pretty awesome to watch them work, I gotta say.
And they have come out a little afterwards. They don't want to reveal too much, I'm sure, because, you know, they by some, order, they have to not disclose everything they know, but you can certainly tell in the way that they're describing the scene and the events that they think that there's something strange about what happened.
Yeah, they absolutely do. I think that if anyone's interested in those comments, I think it was on the Law and Crime channel podcast. There's a young woman that does podcasts there, video podcast, and she spoke with guy with the long beard, and he said he's definitely sus. And you know, just one more thing I'll throw in there, since it's fresh in my mind. I just watched their video on the whole thing. They not only found her and her car in Prosser Lake, in the reservoir there, but they also cleared 2 other lakes and like 10 other boat launches and places where this could have happened. And the reason, to my understanding, that they did that was because so much where she was found there at Prosser Reservoir Lake was where the party was, where there's 200 to 300 teenagers partying at that campground right there. And that's where those 19,000 man hours spread out among 60 people over 3 weeks happened. And they already looked in the lake. They had a dive team in there. So to AWP, that was like, okay, well, there was this report of her over by Donner Lake and this other lake. So what they did was they went and they cleared all those areas and they found nothing. So then they went back to where it all started. And what do you know? Within 35 minutes, just doing their lines across the shore, they found a shadow. Their sonar picked up a shadow. At first, they thought it might have been a sunken boat, but then with further, examination, they knew that it was a car. And then they quietly went and gathered their gear and they dove down there. They verified it, and at that point, they notified the family, and then they notified law enforcement. And another thing I noticed watching that was when they notified her father, he was visibly shook. He was visibly upset when he saw where it was. He was like, he unbelievable to him that it hadn't been found by the search and rescue people involved with Placer and Nevada counties.
Yeah, I think I've even, and I can never tell online because, one, I don't know the area, so I don't even know if the pictures I'm looking at is true. But I think they have even, like, I've seen pictures that they're showing that is, like, of the search team actually in the area where the car was found. Like, there's supposedly even actual, photographs. And they're like, well, how did they miss the car if they were over there? And if you think if the water is 14 feet deep, how big is that car from the bottom to the top? That's probably at least half the, So how far down was it? 7 feet before you touched it?
Mm-hmm.
5 maybe?
Mm-hmm. Well, they say it flipped upside down, and it looked like it was upside down and somewhat nose first. So it looked like it was, upside down at a bit of an angle. So yeah, you're right. From the highest point of where the vehicle was, couldn't have been more than 10 feet from the top of the water.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean,
yeah, it's just crazy to me that
like, how do you miss that?
Right.
I even noticed they had a piece of drone footage, and I'll be interested to see in the comments what everyone else thinks, because normally if I say something like this, I'll try to watch it 10 or 15 times so I'm confident, but I only watched it once. But I did note that in the drone shot, after they find the car and they have the buoy there's a drone shot of just the still water of the location. I'm pretty sure I was able to make out a silver rectangle from a drone camera flying, whatever, 30 feet above the water. And I was just like, is it just me, or can we all see that from a drone on a clear day? And like, why has that technology not been involved in the 60 people looking for 19,000 man hours?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then what is it, shortly after they recover the car and the body, shortly after, I think it's another YouTuber, just some other guy who decided to go out to the lake and take a look with like some snorkels and stuff. And he apparently brought up a laptop and some other things that were in the vehicle that had fallen out. It's kind of up in the air. People are still trying to verify if it was Rodney's computer. But my point is, why wouldn't the police search that area to look for that same type of stuff? Because multiple things were found. And it's just, how inept could you be to not find a computer? If it's maybe 10 feet away from where they found the car, you would think that police would do a thorough search of that area even after they pulled the car out.
Wow. Yeah, that's a little disturbing. I would think the same thing. I mean, underwater crime scene, I'm not a law enforcement person, but I would assume an underwater crime scene would be similar to one above water, right? You want to tape it off and make sure you didn't miss anything on the ground or on the floor.
Mm-hmm. So in either way, if it was her or it wasn't hers, it still shouldn't be there, right? I mean, investigation, a search would, of course, if police found that, they would want to see if they could maybe salvage something from the hard drive, see if it was her computer or maybe it's not. So the fact that it was there is just very weird. Either that or the guy who went there just planted it and wanted to be cool and get some YouTube views, but that doesn't look to be the case.
Yeah.
He's not investigated. So.
Wow. Well, I don't know. And then the other strange thing that we should probably point out is the state of the car and the location of Kiely. The state of the car had the rear, the back driver's side window was all the way down, and the passenger side window was halfway down, if I recall. So, and she was in the rear of the car. It was sort of like a hatch SUV sort of thing. So, but it is the area that, you would consider a trunk in a SUV. Now, how that happened, I don't know, but I mean, clearly she wasn't seat belted into the driver's seat. So I don't know what all that means, but it certainly has, sparked a lot of controversy and question marks.
That's even become like I think a thing with, and then I guess we'll probably eventually get into the whole like internet hype about what's going on with this. But that was even like another thing that you've seen YouTube channels like try to dissect. Like supposedly, I think the AAA guy, she was asking him, how do you plug the seatbelt in? And she was like completely drunk too, or something like that. So, and I think like I don't know. I think like he says that he, put it in for her. So it just seems like very weird. Like you even have like, well, was she even wearing a seatbelt? Well, she wasn't. The AAA guy says this, but then she's found in the back of the car. So what happened in the meantime? It just seems like so many just weird things about the case too.
Yeah, I totally agree. That was strange. That had me thinking like, okay, kids out in this area, there's definitely, plenty of alcohol and magic mushrooms and, marijuana like that, the typical stuff that floats around in those counties. So, who knows? They might have just been enjoying something like that. But then there were other things he said, like I almost got to question AWP on like what we were supposed to get out of the interview with that guy, other than it was sort of the reason why they started where they started, because it just left me with more questions than it did answers. I felt like that guy's interview, and I'm not trying to criticize him or them, I'm just saying that it left me with a kind of a Whiskey Tango Foxtrot feeling.
Mm-hmm. Did that apparently happen when he gets the call? Is that the same day that she goes missing, or is it the day after? Because I've heard conflicting things, and that's what's wild about the case too, is that there's so little information being released by the police departments. People are left to try and put the pieces of the puzzle together for themselves.
Yeah, I was very confused about that too, Lux. I just watched it before we got on, and I watched that segment, and I was like, wait a minute, they're talking about 11 a.m. Is that the day before? Is this the night after? Like, I was really confused about what the timeline was there, and I'm sure if I, went back and rewound it a few times, I might be able to have a better assessment, but I just let it roll over me with a once over so I could get on with you guys and kind of give you the hot take. And I was a little put off by that too. I didn't understand that timeline. And I don't know if it's like, because they're saying that her phone stopped pinging at just after midnight. And that was the last time. They keep saying that's the last time she was heard, when she texted her mom back at 12:06 or whatever, said she'd be home, be on her way home. That's sort of the official last time her cell phone pinged or she was heard from. So I don't know if the road service guy, if he's saying that what happened with him was the next morning or what. Like, I was kind of confused by that. That would make sense though, in the sense that like they look like they had a rough night or they've been partying or something like that. But I guess that would mean that is just what does that mean? Is that just an allegation? It doesn't fit into the official timeline, so they don't use it in the official timeline? Was it 11 a.m. the morning before? I honestly don't know. So I'll have to default to the true crime podcasters and vloggers on that one.
Yeah, I've even heard, again, this is all from like, you got a lot of channels out there that are covering this stuff. And some of them I think are just, putting stuff out just to jump on the topic. So you have to wonder like how much is even truthful. But there was I think they had supposedly two people that gave their account of like when they were leaving the party. And I think they said it was around 10:30 or 11, which is supposed to be around the time that she supposedly left it too. And they said kind of like out a little bit away from the party itself, kind of like out on the road. They said like as they were leaving, they didn't see her, and they were just giving the description of the party. And when they were leaving, they said the only thing they noticed was a bunch of kids and somebody else trying to jump a car. So then when people were like, well, was that the the van guy, tow truck guy, the guy who was jumping the car, was that the dude who was jumping it then at night? You know, it's like, or is it, you know, somebody just making this story up just to make it even more of a fucking confusing case? But I have heard that too, that people are wondering like, oh, was that the same dude? If that's true.
I almost have to wonder, like, if some of these, maybe this is all just naturally occurring because, as you guys have probably noticed, true crime podcasting is now a thing that is like a mainstream media thing. Like they're weaving it into movies, they're weaving it into, you know, like that new Steve Martin show. Like it's all so popular. All the mommy bloggers are moving into, you know, true crime because I don't know. I guess it's just one of those things people are really interested in. I guess it's just a marketing thing. It sells, it drives people. People have a legitimate interest in it and they see other people doing it. And it looks fun. Let's face it, podcasting is fun. So, you know, but I don't know what to make of it. It adds a lot of confusion to something that, you know, we're trying to take seriously as, you know, as best as three jokers like us can.
And I'll say one thing. I'll be honest with you. I thought that the conspiracy community had gotten bad with, like, you know, monetizing or just making money or just seem like it's about making money. And then when Lex told me about this stuff and I started looking at it, I was like, oh, true crime is where it's at, I guess, now. To be trying to rake in money on podcasts. I was like, fuck, because you start watching all these shows that are supposedly showing all this, you know, stuff about this case. You all sit to even question them. It's like, you're just saying this because you want to sound hot and get those super chats going?
It happens. It do be like that, bro.
Yeah, and so the crazy thing about the party, and you said that you were kind of like local to the area, and you know what goes on around like the party scene. They claim that there were hundreds of people at this party,
200 to 300,
and that's what it wasn't it wasn't a small group of people. There were tons of, and there's little to no video evidence at all. We have a couple blurry pictures and a 10-second video that you can't really tell anything that's going on.
Yeah.
I find it very, very fishy that a group of kids between like 16, 17, 18, 19, whatever. So there were college kids there too, and adults, and no one had video footage.
Yeah.
It's just strange to me.
It is strange. I got to tell you too, in that area, there were always a mixed age of people in the party community, especially like out in the outdoor parties, you know, when it's like, hey, we're throwing a giant shindig. There's going to be kegs. There's going to be this. There's going to be that. You know, we used to go to great lengths to be able to party out in those areas. You know, we would set up stuff across the river that, you know, people, you know, like cops wouldn't even be able to get out there to some of these places. And we would have to ferry people across the river in the back of trucks. You know what I mean?
Awesome.
And put the keg in and put the, you know, the people organizing the party in the back of the truck, drive it across the river, plant the keg, you know, the first 5 people start drinking those red Solo cups, and then the trucks just come and go, and then, you know, they pick everybody up from the other side of the river, and they do a little bit of forebuy-in, you know, and drop them off at the party site. But there were always, you know, when I was a teenager partying sometimes in places like that, there were always guys there in their 20s, 30s, you know, guys that were, you know, whatever, you know, for whatever it's worth. That was definitely a thing going on. And I do find it strange also that that no one has said anything. And I think it was mentioned in the AWP video that they did that someone contacted them and said, hey, in the social media feeds, the kids are saying that, you know, this was a pretty wild party. Some crazy stuff went down. There was some fights. There was, you know, some other nameless, like, you know, kind of dramatic events going on there. And why the silence? What's with the mass formation silence here? That's kind of weird.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I do think, like you were saying about the age, I did hear that as well, that first off, I think the party, it was supposed to be like like a senior, going away, like pretty much like they're graduating. That's their last summer. And she just happened to be a grade ahead. So she was 16, but she actually was supposed to be graduating too. So that's why she fit going to that party. But they said there was anywhere from like her age and up to like the mid-20s, because you just had people from the outside area just coming too, because they knew younger dudes that were graduating as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and keep in mind the whole snowboarder population loves living in Truckee. Like there's a very I mean, I haven't been there in many years at this point, but you know, through my whole growing up and young adult life there, Truckee was the spot, you know, tons of people party in Truckee. It is a bit of a party location because if you know any folks, you know what I'm talking about. If you know any California surfers, skateboarders, or snowboarders, you know the types of personalities I'm talking about. And it's just fun too. You know, it's a great place to have fun, to do, you know, board sports and stuff like that. But in summertime, a lot of partying happens. There's definitely a lot of partying, and there's a lot of people that live there. A lot of people grow weed there. You know, there's a lot of weed
Oh,
growers up there. A lot of, you know, it's a bit of a party place, I gotta say.
I didn't know that about the weed.
Oh,
Interesting.
yeah. Oh yeah, they do it up over there. Plus, you know, it's legal in California now, so everything has changed and is changing up there. You could order weed on your phone from the party probably and have it delivered by a legal, you know, delivery service.
Right.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah. There's, I've even known like other states that kind of, you know, they have weed legal to a certain extent. And like the delivery services still know a way to deliver the shit in a way that makes it legal. Like we're just charging you for the shipping. We're not actually charging you for the weed. So the shipping's $50. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You know, like they have their ways of getting around it to where they can still deliver the shit to you, even though that's technically, you know, it's, you know, fine line.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm sure that goes on in California.
Well, in California, I mean, legal with an L. I mean, you can literally go to weedmaps.com and pick out your strain, and like someone will deliver it to you in short order. It's weird, you know. Wasn't like that when I lived there, folks. We had to run and hide and be sneaky.
So I'm thinking back to when I was a teen and going to parties. The cops who were local to that area, they knew where party spots were, and they would sit and they would watch, you know, who was is that not a thing in Truckee? I mean, it sounds like a pretty popular spot. Were they not around that area?
These lakes are pretty remote, but you know, to your point, I would think a party that big, I would be a little bit surprised if the locals didn't get a tip or, you know, a phone call or something. But I don't know, man. I mean, honestly, it's very possible that those kids ran that lake for that weekend, and anyone that brought their family up there to camp was like, "Oh my God, there's 300 teenagers here partying. Let's go to the Donner Lake instead." It's possible, but yeah, you know, it is a very there's a lot of lake territory up there. There's a lot of forest up there, so it is a difficult place to police, I'm sure. But you know, it is odd, I think, that they didn't at least get checked on or something like that with a party that big. That's quite the rager.
And with all of those people there at the party, you would think that there would be some witness that would come forward, you know, with or without police, that would say, "Hey, yeah, I was there that night. You know, this is what I saw."
Yeah. Can you get me a Haagen-Dazs bar while that's going on there?
Yo, it's so funny
Sure.
how that thing always, like, no matter what time me and him record, that motherfucker comes by. That is really weird.
Always, man.
Yeah, that is fucking bizarre. It's probably the CIA. It's the CIA listening in on you.
Yeah, right.
They're like, "Hey, he thinks it's a fucking ice cream, man."
We're driving by with that little radar-looking
Yeah.
thing, going, "Oh, he's podcasting again."
We joke about it's like a signal for clown world. Like whenever we're talking about crazy conspiracy stuff, you got the ice cream truck that comes by, you know.
Circus music enters all on its own.
Right.
You know what I wanted to ask you, if you don't mind. I don't know if this is anything that you know much about. I was hoping maybe you might. Do you know, like, because this is where I think, and I think Lux will probably even agree, this one person kind of spurred it into the YouTube podcasting. Do you know anything about that girl, Sammy, that was originally interviewed? Kind of that like started the whole, her being interviewed on Tony Dodge's show is like kind of what spurred the whole sensation on YouTube.
No, I can't say that I do. Let me check my history real quick. I did watch this one chick just before the show. I'd never heard of her. No, that's not the same gal.
What was that, Zanime?
No, it was Christina Randall. Shout out. I don't know if you deserve it, but you got one.
Yeah, so the Sammy girl that goes on this interview not long after Kiely goes missing, Sammy is Kylie's best friend. Now, Sammy led a volunteer effort in that area to, get volunteers to try and search. And if you look at the press conferences, she was running the press conferences with the police in the background, which weird. I find is very weird. She tells people to, if you have children who want to come volunteer to find Kiely, call me. Don't call the police. Call me. Only talk to me. Drop your kids off and don't even come around this area. It's weird. It's very weird. And I don't know why the police would allow that to happen. But anyway, so she decides to do an interview. And you would think, oh, well, maybe CNN would want to interview her, Fox, somebody big, right? No. She goes on a relatively small YouTube channel that covers true crime called All American Dream Chasers by the host is Tony Dodge. So somehow he was able to get an interview with this best friend. And it starts to get weirder from there, in my opinion. Like that's when all the connections of these true crime YouTubers come in and they know more about the case than anybody who was actually there. It gets weird.
I'm going to have to look into that. I've already, I'm on the American Dream Chaser channel right now, so I'll look into that after we speak. But, just generally, knowing the way that, certain information ecosystems can get diluted with stuff. One thing I will caution the true crime podcasters about, you got to be really careful when it comes to your sources, because if it's anything like, just independent media, like I've been doing for a long time, it's not uncommon to come across people that want to provide information or donations or, stuff like that, or, try to pull you out into a real life situation when you're looking to stay behind your computer. Things like this can happen. And I would suspect that if, I'm not saying there is, but I'm just saying in certain situations, if there was a cover up, and how juicy is that if you're a true crime podcaster, if you can explore something and maybe even cast a shadow of a doubt that there is a cover up, that's a scoop. I got you. I get it. I understand. And there's nothing wrong with wanting that, but you got to be careful, because if there is a cover up, you can find yourself being the mouthpiece for like a reverse psychological operation where some nefarious entity, person, people's, whatever, I'm not saying who they are or what they'd be associated with. I have no idea. I'm just saying there's a vulnerability there that broadcasters and, citizen journalists face, where it's like, if you do something a certain way, like say maybe you picked up on something on a social media thread and you amp it and you're good at what you do and you start getting a lot of attention, and then someone starts dropping you crazy donations that you think, oh, great, they like it when I do this. And then you amp it more, and you look for more things that support that line of thought. But you may find yourself in a situation where there is no answer there, and you pretty much are doing theorizing that you can't prove. And then there can be like splinter factions, of course, because other people are watching you and they want to do the same thing. They go a different way. It can just muddy the water. I'm just saying, I think there's opportunities for nefarious or negligent entities to come into the narrative, the counter narrative, if you will, or the public narrative or the citizen journalist narrative, and dilute it in a way that you may not even know. You may not even realize that that's happening to you. You may think you're on the right path, but you may be just setting up an alternative narrative that makes it such that, the truth can be more difficult to find for everybody.
Absolutely. Very well said.
Totally. Yeah, I was hoping maybe you might have known a little bit more about her, because I really do think that that's kind of Because then, like, after that, I think, like, another day or two later, the same show now has on, like, a person that was supposedly at the search, you know, and has all these stories to tell, and it just seems to get weirder and weirder.
Yeah.
And then, like, all these other shows start getting involved, and, like, I mean, even some of them just from, like one person that Lux pointed out, Psychobabble. I didn't even know what that word meant, and I started looking into it, and I was like, just from the name of his show, I'd be a little leery on, like, taking what he's saying as truth. You know, it's basically almost like occultism, that word, in its sense.
Yeah.
It's like magic in itself.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's not the greatest channel name.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it comes from the song. Well, the song's called "Psychobabble" by the Alan Parsons Project band.
Oh no.
Yeah, man. And if you look into the lyrics, of course, you know, we're former secret society members, so we spot occultism right away. You look at the lyrics of the song, the content of the channel that, you know, he named his channel after that song. There's just a lot of weird content in the past that definitely points to some occultism that he's not being truthful about. Yeah, it's weird. And I guess we could probably get into and why we could probably get into the Zanime stuff, because that is probably some of the most strange portion of this whole case.
I'll be honest with you too. If this is some weird kind of cover up or some kind of like weird, you know, psyop or whatever, I think adding her to it is what's going to actually cause people to think that. Like, she didn't help actually at all, I don't think. Because very fucking weird. If you were to listen to everything that she says and then look at the whole point, the whole situation, or even just her, it's just fucking weird.
Really?
Yeah, okay, I really think it makes the whole situation even look more suspect.
Well, tell me more. You're gonna have to break that down for me a little bit more. How's that work?
You want to go, Lux? You want to introduce Zanime?
Shoo. So this is a loaded one, okay?
All right.
So shortly after Kiely disappears, a caller calls into a true crime podcast by the name of Zanime. And she claims that she has video of a party that was right next to the party that Kiely was at. Which is weird, right? So then another caller comes on, and he goes by the name Ronnie Jones, and he claims that he has two cousins that were there the night that Kiely went missing. Now, he has so much detail about what his cousins saw that he could say that she was drunk at this certain time and that they saw her ingesting certain drugs at this time, and she was really, really drunk. To me, that's bizarre, because they shouldn't be talking to a podcast if they have that information. They should be talking to the police, okay? So after that show ends, a couple days later, this girl, Zanime again, appears on another podcast. And she's going over how she knows this other caller, Ronnie Jones. They've been in contact. He's a real person. He's, you know, his information is true. And this Zanime girl starts to try to create the narrative that the public's supposed to believe, because she's going on these really big true crime podcasts talking about it. Now, you would think to yourself, well, Zanime, maybe she's covered true crime. No, she's never covered true crime before. Her channel had maybe 5 videos. And so people start to look into this Zanime girl, because they're like, wow, this is weird that she knows so much about what happened that night. And it turns out that this girl Zanime was at the exact area where Kiely went missing. She had gone out on a kayak and was showing all of her YouTube, viewers this area of Crosser. And she's kayaking and jumps back in the car, and the timeline is very weird because it's so close to where they found the car. It's just fishy. And you look into this girl's anime a little bit more, and you find out that she actually works for NASA. She has extremely high security clearance. She has uploaded videos to her own YouTube channel about how she's been involved with psychological operations and all of these false flag events in California where they stage events and then it's the kind of psyop training, I guess you could say. And so this girl she's Ukrainian, and she has all of this crazy clearance. She's been in the military for 19 years or something. It's just strange because when she does appear on the show, she has purple hair, which I'm a former military member. I know you cannot have purple hair if you're active duty military. So that's just a weird thing. But she's got all of these details, and she inadvertently places herself there roughly around the same time. This is before they found the car. She's at the exact same location, and she's got these weird connections to intel agencies and crazy high clearance. It's just the connections of all of that to me is super fishy, and she's trying to control the narrative of what happened and what didn't happen. And it just made me think that there could be some type of influence here at a higher level,
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay, that's a big data dump right there. I'm coming in cold on that one, but that's all very, very sus right there from multiple vectors.
I mean, you can even find her in uniform, pictures of her in uniform and everything. I mean, and I am almost positive she kind of admits some of it anyway, while she's on, this is even another thing too. When she first popped up, she went on, the same show, and they did like an 8 hours live stream. I mean, some people were even saying, how the fuck do you do 8 hours when it's already at night? Like, you've already had your whole day. Like, what drugs are you even taking to fucking keep going?
Yeah. It's that purple hair dye, man. It's got electrolytes in it.
And she also appeared, so her family appeared on the news. So months before Kiely goes missing, right around the start of the Ukraine-Russia war, she appears on multiple news stations because she has to go to Ukraine to get her family, and she's going to bring them back to the United States. And so she gets them here. But again, she's already been in the United States for like 19 years. She's going back to get these people. And you see her in all of these different news clippings talking about her venture to go get her family. It's like this girl just pops out of nowhere and suddenly is influencing real world events. And I don't know, it's fishy.
Yeah, I don't like the sound of that. And, the thing with that is you got to start watching for like double inverted reverse psyops, as I like to call them. It's sort of a intellectual takeoff of Beavis and Butthead dance. But like that kind of stuff, when that kind of stuff is so easy to find, when it's just out there and you see it having some sort of influence on the narrative, I immediately start to wonder, is this conspiracy candy? Are they trying to drag me around by the nose and use some PR? Because that person sounds like a PR sort of prop up person, so, and when it's a PR operation, and I would assume, what you said about her Ukrainian family, that sounds familiar. I think I may have actually seen this person before in that regard, back when that happened back in February or March, whatever that was. But yeah, you really got to watch out with those ones, because it's like, it's almost too good. You know what I mean? The alternative narrative is just too enticing. It looks like bait, it's like, oh wow, so we've got someone with a clearance here, and why are they running the narrative? You know what I mean? It could just be a complete red herring or a smoke screen or something to get people giving it more value than it should actually hold, so that they discredit the entire movement of people looking into this, and I know we're being a little punchy to the true crime bloggers out there, but you folks need to know that this is something that happens. This is standard fare in statecraft and stagecraft. And if you think there is a cover up, you can bet there's going to be an advanced level of stagecraft involved with it if it's going to work.
Oh yeah, I think you nailed it on the head with that. That's why I had even asked you about Sammy, because like I even questioned if that's when like the whole bullshit thing started, because they say that people are saying that maybe that's how supposedly Zanime even got on the same show that Sammy went on, is because maybe Sammy told her. I mean, and even in the Sammy interview, she's even doing it from like, this is the weird thing too that I find about it. you're going on a show, like this girl is involved with this whole missing girl thing, and they're trying to find her, and like almost like a spokesperson for the thing, practically in that town. She, like Luck said, you would think maybe CNN. No, she goes on a podcast that has like 10,000 subs on YouTube from your car during the search. Like you could see people walking around. You know, she's actually at the search party. You stopped what you were doing to go on that dude's show? Like, it's just like, why him of all people? It just seemed really weird. And then Zanime shows up a few days later on the same show with all this outlandish stuff.
And I don't think that they thought that this case would end up getting as much attention as it did until this guy by the name of Ryan Upchurch he's a country rapper, singer, but he was interested about this case, and he started to see weird inconsistencies, especially with the stuff we're talking about now. And he's got an audience of like 2 million people. And so he just starts to bring up these anomalies, and that's when everything starts to fall apart, because now Zanime has a different story. She heard about the missing girl, and she volunteers to drive 3 hours in that direction to go search the lake. But she had already planned on going to the lake because she wanted a mini vacation. And then when she got to the lake, she didn't really know where to go, and she just decided to walk. She doesn't even explain why she went to that certain area. And she's, oh yeah, it's a place I wanted to go check out. I saw a path and I wanted to follow it. Meanwhile, that path led, we're talking like hundreds, hundreds, I'll say like 200 yards from where they found the car.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's all pretty crazy. I'll have to look into Ryan Upchurch too. I didn't realize that there was a spark. And see, now that leads me to think, if there was a cover up, if something, first of all, why would there be a cover up is probably a really interesting question, because I think the thing everybody's dancing around that we should probably just say out loud is, if there was a cover up, as some people suspect, why wouldn't the police have to be involved in it? Wouldn't Placer and Nevada County have to be involved in that? And that makes it a really huge thing. You know what I mean? That makes it something, that's the part that most people don't want to say. And, I dealt with that too. I have family that worked in those departments, so I'm familiar with a little bit about how those departments work, and I know that there's, like any department, there's a mixed bag of people in there, but why would they do that? How could they do that is another question. Like, how could you get a group of 60 people to avoid a certain spot? Well, that's actually, you could probably do that because it's such a wide area of search. If 2 or 3 corrupt people had management over the one spot where they knew something was, I guess that's possible. And this is kind of the place where people's brains go when they're thinking about this. But that's the scary thing. Like, if there was a cover up, the next logical question is how, and that would mean, I think, that the police would have to be involved. And that's a pretty bold statement. Most people don't want to say that because we can't prove it, but there's sure enough circumstantial evidence that people are thinking that. A lot of people have voiced it. So what's up with that? And I got to point out, there have been, this isn't the first time, that someone has gone missing in those 2 counties and not been found. Back in, what was it? Let's see here. I got the article up right now. Remains of California woman found. Actually,
I heard now Interstate 80 goes through that too, right?
It sure does. Yeah.
Now I've heard that's a hot spot, and there's even a serial killer, isn't there, that was associated with that?
Yeah. The Golden State Killer was just recently apprehended, and he had been operating from, like the 1970s and 80s, I think, were the main ones there. So there's this case right here. This is 15 years after a California woman disappeared and 13 years after a man was convicted of murder. Authorities say they found her body. Christy Wilson, she was last seen at the Thunder Valley Casino northeast of Sacramento. And she disappeared and was missing for a very, very long time. She'd been gambling with Mario Flavio Garcia at the casino, and surveillance video showed the pair walking toward the exit. This is back on October 5th of 2005. And Placer County Sheriff detectives arrested Garcia after they found hair and blood spots with her DNA in the car. But and they found her body not all that long ago, so the body was missing for a long time. And I had heard rumors that there were some people out there that thought that there was some sort of cover up there, or that maybe they didn't have the right guy. And then the Golden State Killer himself. Well, he was a former cop. So for whatever that's worth, that's a thing. He was, I believe, a Placer County or Auburn PD. I can't remember if it was Auburn PD or Placer County, but yeah, that's this piece of trash right here. Golden State Killer, serial rapist turned serial killer who terrorized Californians in the 70s and 80s. At large for decades, Joseph DeAngelo was arrested in 2018. So, it's probably too big of a rabbit hole for me to go too far into, but for folks that are interested, there's kind of a rich history of, true crime sort of stuff going on in that part of California. And as far as DeAngelo goes, I mean, he operated up and down the state. He was, and some people have asked, well, how is that possible for him to have done that so long? And if you start looking into the individual, cases that he's associated with, there are people out there that think that maybe that guy wasn't operating in solo. You know what I mean? So there are some, intriguing elements out there for all of you true crime podcasters out there looking to make it big,
But and they haven't even released the results of the autopsy yet in this case, which I find really weird.
I think they said not until November, right?
They said they were going to wait until November, and then people started to say, well, what the hell are you talking about? It can't take that long. And so then I think it was like a week ago, they said it would come out in 2 weeks. So we're still waiting to see. There's no cause of death. There's not much to go on, and it's just kind of weird that it's taking this long, and there's so many inconsistencies throughout the entire case. Everyone keeps changing their story, the lack of witnesses, stuff we've talked about here. It's just, I don't know. It's a weird one to me, and it definitely made me want to look into it more.
Yeah.
Why is it that Coolio died yesterday, and I know that he had a cardiac arrest, and he's super famous. He's the kind of person you would think they would hold off on that kind of information. Wait for the toxicology, all that stuff. But no, I wake up in the morning and it's like, boom, here's what the state of the bathroom was. Boom, there was no drugs there. Boom, cardiac arrest. We don't know what it was. A jibby jab thing, but we don't know. Of course, they won't tell us that. But Kiely, like the information's not out. Like, what's the purpose of that? Is that's simply fueling a lot of conversation on the internet that maybe would go a different way if they were being straight with us. And it's one of the reasons we're being careful here. And doing our best to do a service to her memory, to those that are interested in the topic. It's like that's why I felt the need to come on, because NY was telling me, he was like, yeah, gosh, I don't want to I don't want to go too far with this one. There's people hurting over it and stuff, and there's people making claims that I can't verify. But I think it's I kind of hopefully I encouraged it to happen a little bit, because I've been looking at it and I feel the same way. And then I see all the true crime podcaster people out there, and it's like, you folks need to learn a little bit about how to protect yourself from predatory mass media and psyops and weird esoteric stuff that's you're steeped in, because everything is not as it appears, even more so than you might think if you're a true crime blogger looking into potential cover-ups and stuff like that. Because when you find a real one, you can bet your if you are unlucky enough or lucky enough to find a real one, you might be in a dangerous situation. And I think that's why we just see just this onslaught of stuff on this case. You know, it may be all above board, but when what'd you say his name was, when Ryan Upchurch amplified it, it's very possible that this was something that was just going to go away. I mean, I'm just saying, I don't know for sure, but it is very possible that something like that could happen in a case where, I mean, who knows, dude? Maybe I'm not even going to hypothetical it. Maybe someone important's kid had something to do with what happened. You know what I mean?
I was going to bring that up. They're supposedly saying, I don't know how true it is. I haven't looked into it too much myself, but supposedly I have heard, again, like, you don't know what to believe on these YouTube fucking true crime things. But supposedly they say that original girl, Sammy, who even had anything to say about it, her parent family's in politics. So I was like, fuck, like, how do you even, like, who the fuck knows what to even believe? And, like, again, like I said, like, you know, Ryan Upchurch, really, if people are interested in this, you should really go check out his stuff. It might end up mind-fucking you more and even thinking, like, I really don't know what to believe about any of this shit. But, I mean, like, he really did do a good, you know, pointing out. He did a good job of pointing out, I think, like, even the weird shit with the people on YouTube and on the internet that seem to become, like, the voices of it. Like, none of these people really, how are they connecting? I mean, this guy was even to the point to where he was, like, watching this shit so much that when that lady Zanime came on, the main host of the show that was, like, going through chats to, like, show, like, you know, supposed messages that he's gotten from people that have told him about shit that was going on at the party, you know, these people that are giving him information. This kid was watching his shit so well that he even saw that somewhere inside his chat, he even says, it's 6 weeks old, we can gangbang her. So he's even showing, like who is this guy anyway that's even got this show? If he's got a text message like that inside his DMs on Instagrams, we can gangbang her.
Wow.
He's like, you don't even realize who this guy might be. And he's the one that's supposedly getting all this hot topic, these, you know, Zanime and Sammy found his show out of all people.
He's and like, they have all the information that nobody else has, and suddenly they're controlling the narrative. Yeah, man.
Yeah, that's not good. That's not a good setup right there, because you've got so are some of these people anonymous online also, or do they have their face out there, or what are we dealing with as far as, like, disclosure as to who's doing broadcasting here?
I think they except for, like, maybe, well, Zanime has showed herself, Sammy showed herself. I mean, Tony Dodge does, Psychobabble does.
Okay. All right. So we're talking video. All right. Okay. Well, be interested to hear what any of those people have to say about this conversation, you know, because obviously.
Oh, Ryan Upchurch has already even gone on their shows and tried asking them, what's up with this stuff? This shit isn't making sense. He's even gotten the girl Zanime to actually sign off because she just didn't have an answer for the questions he was asking her. Because he started pointing out how she even lies. If you listen to shit that she said and then something else that she said, he's like, she's lying and changing the story. And she signed off because she's like, I don't even have an answer, basically. It's a total fuck show on the internet when it comes to it. That's why I was like, what the fuck is this?
Well, I'm really glad I joined you guys, because that's all the stuff I've been avoiding. You know, I was really kind of, because, you know, I'm reporting about this on a news network, so I don't really want to go too deep into the esoterics and the potential conspiracies. Although, you know, if there's stuff that I feel like the audience should be aware of, I'll throw it out there. I'm not afraid to, but, you know, I'm kind of just taking it from a, you know, what we know perspective, or what we think we know at least. And I went as far as to bring on former LA police chief Pat Jordan, who's got 34 years of experience, and I gave him some of the tough questions, you know. And the ultimate tough question I gave him was, explain to me how it is the Nevada County and Placer County search and rescue teams couldn't find this car. It doesn't make sense. Like, it's a bad look when two guys with a YouTube channel go out on a boat and find it in 35 minutes, and, you know, you guys looked for 3 weeks and then we're about to give up. Like, how does that work? And, you know, he's from that law enforcement, you know, law enforcement background. So, you know, I put some value in what he says. He's a regular on my show. He's a really cool guy. But he said, you know, look, these and keep in mind, this is like right after they found her. So this is before the Law and Crime podcast came out, where, you know, the AWP guys were saying, you know, hey, this is a little suspect, you know. But I was immediately aware that this is sus. What the hell, you know? You guys find it in 35 minutes. I didn't even realize at that point they had already cleared 2 other lakes and, you know, 12 other docks or whatever launch points. And you know, Chief Jordan, he said, you know, hey, not every cop and not every SRE guy is going to be trained on advanced sonar. You know, these guys are very specialized. It's very possible, you know, that it could have been overlooked. Like, he was, you know, he did his best to walk me back off of the ledge there of like, they're covering it up. You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't pushing for that, but I was just saying, hey, a lot of people out here are saying, you know, what WTF? Why did they not find this thing in 14 feet of water? You know, they searched that area. So I don't know, you know, and I'm going to have him back on. I was hoping to have had him back on before we had this talk so I could have the follow-up discussion with him and let you guys know and the audience know what he thinks now that, you know, the timeline's a little further out, and that AWP is kind of saying they think it's suspect. So I will have him back on for a follow-up and see what he thinks. But his initial take was, don't put too much weight on the fact that they didn't find her, because, you know, we're talking underwater search and rescue, and underwater search and rescue is not something you learn in the police academy. It's not necessarily something you even learn at SRE, search and rescue school. So, you know, that was kind of his take for what it's worth.
Yeah, and I guess I would just say, for, you know, the reason why we're talking about this, you know, covering it, is because, you know, all of these events that happen, whether it be Gabby Petito, this case, you know, all of these missing people, all these world events that just grab the public's attention. Some of these events are 100% real, and some families are absolutely hurting. And it's a big disjustice for, you know, podcasters or what to assume or to make jumps and to try and say that everything is a psychological operation, because that's not true. These events do happen. People do go missing. People do get hurt. And on the other end, there are events that are fabricated to grab the attention of the public and to shape their opinion. And sometimes it's a little bit of both. And when you see these podcasts who are covering people who are going missing, and then they're getting all of these super chats, all of this money from these missing people's, you know, homicides, and to me, they're not doing research about it, they're just bringing callers on to give an opinion, and then they get super chats, and it's I don't know if that's really helping or hurting anybody, you know. But the point is that these events, you know, it's good for us to keep our eyes open and to try and come at it from a rational side, not from one extreme end of it being everything's a conspiracy, and then, you know, the other end, everything we see on the news is true. We have to find a middle ground and be able to critically think and to look at these events and see why the events happen, who are around the events, and is there something that's a little bit deeper, because it's ultimately trying to find the truth. And you know,
what I even thought was really weird, and again, I hate, you know, not trying to keep using this guy's name, and I do think some of the stuff that he has covered, you know, Ryan Upchurch, he is spot on. There was something he had even looked into, and this was like this actually really intrigued me, because this is what started making me wonder, is this kind of a money grab off of a real situation, or like a cover up or whatever? He even had showed how, like, these, I think one of the GoFundMes that was made, that somebody had started to help fund the search and rescue, goes back. He ended up like checking the company that the money is going to. And then, you know, you can go on the internet and find companies and find who's registered to them. You can legally do all that. It's not doxing. He went and looked and realized that the person's name who's under the company is then also the same name that is a relative of one of the YouTubers that is covering the show on their show, covering the case on their show. So he's like, yo, like, is this person who's pushing this GoFundMe actually have a GoFundMe account that's linked to one of his relatives? And like this whole thing is just about money? You know, are you covering this whole thing to rake in $63,000 that you got in that GoFundMe account? Or is it even crazier? Is that does this person already know what happened and know that she'll never come back alive and that money's going to go nowhere? You know, it could get even that crazy. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. The whole crowdfunding thing, that's a whole nother vector, a whole nother opportunity that many shiesty people will use to exploit. There's a whole lot of opportunity for exploitation in a case like this, man. And you know, as our listeners can and viewers can see right now, you know, from what we've broke down, we know what we think we know, and we know there's a lot that we don't know, and there are more questions than answers. And the main narrative is not jumping in to help us, to help declutter the information ecosystem that we're working with here. And these are all massive red flags. And I think this is where most people, honestly, guys, give up if they haven't already. It's like you get to this point, and I mean, this, I'll be honest with you, this is pretty much my give up point right here. You know, I'm going to talk to Pat Jordan about it one more time. And if you guys ask me to talk about it, I'll talk about it again. And if anything develops, I'll talk about it again. But like knowing, you know, holistically now that you guys have added to my context, and thank you for that. I'm glad I didn't have to swim into those pools as deeply as you guys did. But I know enough to know what I don't know. I know what the questions are, and I don't know where to go to get them resolved other than to keep my eyes open, you know. But I think this is one thing I can say for sure. That poor girl is gone, and that fucking sucks. And that her story is possibly being exploited by people, and that fucking sucks. And I'm sorry that's become the thing, but there's a narrative battle happening here for some reason. Right. And I don't know who's in charge of the narrative. I don't know, and they're dueling, maybe, you know, triple narratives going on here. So you've got mainstream narrative, which is light and loose and not very full of data, and then, you know, you got the YouTube level and the podcast level, and it becomes really, really murky. And then you see them crossing over. There's the Venn diagram section where they cross over, and that's when conspiracy theories, that's when we have to start filling in gaps. You know, and I'm not using conspiracy theories as a pejorative there. I'm using it in its honest definition. You know, if the three of us, as my friend Joseph would say, if the three of us we're talking about going bowling, we're conspiring about going bowling. You know, it is a word that we are allowed to use. And if more than one person is involved in something, you know, you can use it that way. But you know what I mean? There's just that place in the middle where mainstream and then counter narratives meet is where that all gets murky, and you've got shady characters, dodgy characters in here with government affiliations. And it doesn't mean they did it, but it certainly does look like they're trying to salt the narrative or take the narrative, and for whatever purposes.
Yeah, I think you nailed it too with like saying something like basically like this is even what I thought was weird, and I'm not, you know, saying anything bad about AWP. I haven't even looked into them. You know, I just know about what this case, but like I do find it weird that it's like the girl goes missing, that's in the news, and now anything else about the case seemed to have happened now because of YouTube. Like I find that weird in itself.
Me too. That was the thing that got me interested. I mean, I was interested because I know of other mysteries that have happened in the area, like I said, and I'm from the area, so I was immediately interested. But the thing I found most profound was the day that it was announced that the YouTuber guys found her. And from what I can tell, those guys are legit. I really like them so far. I think what they do is really neat. And a valuable thing, you know, assuming everything is above board, and I have no reason to assume otherwise. So, you know, my hat's off to them. I shout them out. I hope if they hear this, they appreciate our honest take on it, because we're people, you know, he can't say certain things about it because he's involved in a case, an ongoing case. And we're people that are just observing the media ecosphere and trying to figure out what the actual fuck is going on, you know? So there's the beauty of the First Amendment on the internet.
Very well said.
Yeah. Well, and also very cool that, you know, a lot of people talk about what could happen or what the situation is. Man, we need more people like that who are going to actually go out and try and do something real instead of just speculate, you know?
Yeah.
So hats off to AWP for the work that they do.
Yeah. They got great beards too, man.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That one guy, that's fucking glorious beard he's got there. For sure.
Yeah, challenge is yours, my friend.
I know. I gotta do better. I need to take some supplements or something.
So I can get my beard game up.
See if I can get my head as big as Joe Rogan's.
I think Alex Jones has a product for that.
Yeah,
I think he does.
Both. Let's both be taking.
I was talking about my forehead, bro. You're gross. You nasty.
That's funny.
Well, I guess that's probably a good place to end it there. I mean,
all right. Well, you know, it's 4:20 p.m. here in Central Texas, so I'll take it as a good sign. I think we did good today, fellas. And
I really enjoyed that. Yeah,
I did too. I really appreciate you guys inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here on Occult Rejects. I'll be sure and share this on my website once it's out. Once it's been out for a little bit, I'll share it over there. Put it up on alternatecurrentradio.com. And NY. Great stuff, man. Thank you for everything you do, and thank you for joining me on my TNT show sometimes too, man.
For sure.
Really
always a good time. Always enjoy.
Yeah, Lux. We're gonna have to throw Lux into that mix. You're gonna have to come out there and hop on one of those with me sometime, man.
Yeah, when you start doing the 2 people for an hour. Perfect.
Right. There you go.
There you go. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. I like that.
I'll also include your links in the bottom as well. Your links will be in the bottom for your shows. Real quick, I do, if you don't mind, I do want to just remind people, Ryan Upchurch, I do think is a good source to go to find like some like weird stuff in this. And I know me and Lux have also been, we both watched Dolly Vision.
Yeah,
I think he's actually done a pretty good, well-rounded like approach to look at this, and he does show just like the weird shit. So if people are interested in this, I highly suggest those 2 channels. I mean, I don't know the people. For all I know, they could be part of the problem, but they seem to have kind of a good look, take on the weird situation for sure. You just might be left with more questions than you even had going into this. It's the only problem.
Hey, man, I would rather come out with more questions that make sense than answers that don't
make sense.
That I can't prove. You know what I'm saying? So thanks. I'm subscribing to Dolly Vision right now, and I'm going to subscribe to Ryan, too. Thanks, you guys.
Sure. No problem. Yeah, that was thank you very much for coming on, man. I truly enjoyed all 3 of us talking about this topic. It's very interesting, and it's just, I don't know, people. There's some shady shit going on, and I really think it's on YouTube. So definitely check it out. Like I said, Bryan, your links will be in the bottom. Our links are in the bottom. Definitely check out the Element server. That link's in the bottom. We still got the Twin Peaks Watch series going on. So check that out. And I guess until the next one, everybody be well. Later.